Hey there, I'm your host Zoe, and this is part 2 of our inspect system. In today's video, we'll go ahead and finish off the entire thing. And with that said, let's begin. Let's start by creating our render target. So if we go to our content drawer and let's go to our inspect folder, right click, go to texture, and we should see render target. Now for this, I'll call it rt_inspect for render target_inspect. Let's double click inside and scale this to be 1024. And all this will do is it will make it so pixelated for you. So 1024, 1024, save that. And off of here, we want to right click and we want to create a material. And I'll call this RTM for render target material_inspect. Okay, let's open this material up. In here, like we did previously with our widget, we want to select the material, change the surface to be user interface, and the opaque to be translucent. And then in here from the A, which is the opacity, we'll do 1-. This will allow us to see our object, put this into opacity, and this into our final color. Just like so, very simple. So apply that and save it. Then let's go to let's open up our inspect base, like so. In here, we want to add a static mesh. So this is the item we're going to be viewing. So let's call this our inspect mesh so we don't get confused. And in the viewport, this is where it would be. And let's also add something called a scene capture component 2D. And this is going to be the camera that's going to show us our item. Now for the location of the camera, I found a location to be -250 to work really well on the x-axis. But of course you can play around with this. So I'll leave it as that for the default. Next, let's select our scene capture component 2D. And we want to scroll down until we see texture target. And we want to select our rt_inspect. If you don't do this, we won't see anything on the screen. So it's important we do. With this complete then, we'll go to our content drawer, we'll save our inspect base, right click to create a folder, let's call this UI. And in here, we'll create our inspect view. So user widget, widget blueprint, wb_inspect view. Okay, let's open this up. Inside here, we'll add a canvas panel like so. And then on top of this, I want to add a border. And this will serve as the outline for our inspect. Go to anchors, and while holding down Control and Shift, select the middle one, and this will align it for you. For size X, I'll do 800. For size Y, I'll do something like 1000. And then for the brush color, we'll make it 0 on the opacity scale, so it's translucent. Inside this border, I'll grab a vertical box, like so, and then for the padding, I'll do 0. And because of this vertical box in here, if we get border once again, we can put 2 of them inside, Control C, Control V, and if we select them, we can do fill. And if we select the bottom one, we can change this 1 to be 2, and now it takes up twice as much space as the one at the bottom. Let's select the top one once again and change the opacity to be 0, so it's translucent. For the bottom one, what we can do is let's select it all the way to black, and do 0.6, like so. Okay. So this is starting to look more like we want. Then for the border here, we can also rename it to border_image. And the one here we can rename to border_details. And let's make this details border variable because we'll be animating it to go off the screen. And in here for the border image, if we grab our image like so, we can drag it in. And let's also make this variable. So we'll be animating this image, or this border rather, and we'll call this img_inspect item for the image. And we'll give it a padding of 0 and change this brush to be our render target material. There we go. Cool. So then for the border in here, we want to do a few things. First of all, let's grab an overlay like so, and we want to decorate this a little bit. So let's also change the padding to 0, and let's go create our frame and then the shadow like you've seen on the intro. So if we go to our content drawer, right click and create a new folder. Let's call it MUI for materials UI once again. Right click, go to material, and we'll call it m_inspect shadow. Okay. So let's open this up. And in here, we want to set this to be user interface and translucent. Next, we'll grab a generated round rect, like so. And for this, we want to do 1 minus, like that. And we'll plug this value into the final color and into opacity. Cool. Then we want to press 1 and left mouse and add a value of 0.2 in here. And this will go for our sharpness. So we get this kind of effect. And if we press 2 and left mouse, we want to change this value to be 0.99. And this value we want to change to be 0.97. 0.975, exactly. So I found these values to work well. Now, the reason I'm doing it like that and they're not the same is because when this is stretched, this will be a little bit thinner. So that's why they're a bit thicker here. And we plug this value into the box dimensions. So that's for our shadow. Now, if we go ahead and create a second material, this will be our frame, m_inspect frame. Let's open this up and we're doing the same thing, very similar. User interface and translucent. We then get our, what's it called, generated round rect and do 1 minus. So once again, this goes into the final and opacity values. And in here, this time we want to grab 2 of these. So press 2 and left mouse. This goes into the box and this will go into the corner radius. So corner radius we'll leave at 0, 0. And then for this value, we'll change this to 0.99 like we had. Oops, 0.99. And this will be 0.975. Okay. This is what we get. So let's apply that and save. And we can go back into our widget. And in this overlay, we'll get our borders. So we'll get the first border. Let's rename it border shadow. And in the brush, let's look for our shadow. Boom. Let's make it fill with opacity 0. We can see already it's taking place. So let's change the brush color to be black, like so. Then let's add another border to our overlay. And this border will change to border_frame. And for the image, we'll add our frame, like so. Inspect frame and fill it with opacity 0. And this is what we get. Now for the padding, we could do 0.4, something like that. And if you wish, you can also do this for the first border as well. So this is what we get. With that done, next we'll go ahead and add a vertical box. And in this, we'll have all of our content. So let's put this in our overlay. And we'll fill this like so. Fill horizontally and fill vertically. And let's also do a padding of 20, so it's a little bit on the inside. With that, we'll grab our text, and this will be the item name. So for the padding, I'll do something like 30, and the padding at the bottom, I want to be 10. Okay, and I want to do center align and center align vertically. Let's change this name to be item name. We of course want this to be variable. So let's do txt_item name, like so. Then with that, I want to add a border to this. So we'll drag a border underneath this text. For the border content padding, we'll do 1. And for the padding overall, I'll do 50,10, like so. Okay, and this is already starting to look nice. Then on the bottom of this, I want to do a horizontal box. Drag this into our vertical box, like so. And I want to then add a scroll box. Let's put that into the vertical box. So we can see now, if we select both of them, we can do fill, and we see how much space they take up. Now I want this horizontal box to be a little bit smaller, so I'll do 0.5, and that should do me. So just making sure they don't have any padding. Okay. Next, inside of this horizontal box, we want to add another horizontal box. And this will be our content for the weight and the numbers. So in here, I'll rename it to box_weight, for example. And in here, I want to add 2 texts. So let's do that. Control C, Control V. And with them selected, what I'll do is I'll do fill. I'll do padding 10. And I'll do, let's select this one first. We'll do size, let's say 18. And we'll change it from bold to be regular. And we'll do center align like so. Let's do right align and then center. For the second text, we'll do left align, center, and we'll say, let's say 10 for the value, okay? So we then say fill, and this is what we get. And let's also change this to say weight. So if we copy our box and do paste, now we get 2 of them. And for here, we can say value, like so, and we can leave it at 10. The important thing is that we change them to be variable, and let's do txt_item weight. So this value actually changes, and in here we'll do the same, txt_item value. Okay, and we're almost there. Then at the very bottom in the scroll box, what we want to do is we want to add a text like so. Let's make this size 18 as well, from bold to regular. We'll do padding, let's say 20. We'll do 2 like that. And we'll say item description. We should also make this variable and say txt_item description. Okay, and with that done, we then want to add a animation. So this goes away from the screen and this gets bigger. So in order to do that, we'll go to Window, Animations. And in here, we want to create a new animation. Let's call it Fade. And if we compile, select our fade and do add, we should see a few names, which we don't. So all named widgets, and we want to select our border_details. So this one there. And we want to add a render opacity to this. So at the very beginning, we start at 0 and we want to go to 0.5, let's say, and then we'll change this opacity to be 0. So this is the kind of effect we get. Nice fade out. Cool. Then for the actual border, so let me grab this. For the border image, what we'll do is we'll create a new animation and let's call it enlarge. Select that, hit plus, and we'll get our border image. If we click plus, we'll do transform. And in this transform, we're interested in the translation and the scale. So at the very beginning, it's like that. But if we go to 0.5, we want to change the scale to be double of what it was. And we want to change the translation on the Y to 160, like so. And this is the effect we're getting. Okay, so with that done, we can close our animation window. Let's compile and save everything. And let's go to the event graph. In here on pre-construct, we want to grab our items. So let's grab our item name, our item description, our value, and our weight. So from here, we'll do set text like that. And we want to do this for all of our items. So we'll do text. We'll steal that, copy it a few more times. Description, like so. We'll do weight, that comes next, like that. And at the very end, we'll have our value. Next, to get this information to change these texts, what we'll do is we'll create a variable and we'll call this our inspect info. So when this widget is created, we'll pass in this value at the very beginning. So we need to make sure this is instance editable and exposed on spawn. Then for the type, if you can guess, it's going to be s_inspect info, just like so. So when we do get it, we'll get it here and do a break. And in here, we have all of the goods. So let's do item name to item name. item description, we'll do item weight, which will convert it for us, and in the item value, which will also convert it. And if we click on this, we can do hide unconnected pins, and this is what we get. Now, if you want, you could also clean this up a little bit, but I think it looks good. So let's compile and save, and we can exit now. All right, so next in our BP_inspect base, let's go to the event graph, and in here, we want to add the widget we just made. So let's go to functions, create a new function called create inspect view. And in here, we'll do create widget, and we'll add our inspect widget like so. This blue pin we'll put at the start. From here, we'll promote to a variable WB_inspect view. And then we'll add it to our viewport like so. Cool. Let's compile and save that. And while we're here, we can also add in our animations. So let's do zoom in fade, let's say. And in here, we want to grab our widget reference, and we want to grab one of the animations. So let's do fade, get fade, and we'll do play animation, just like so. Now for the target, this is the inspect view. So we can do that. Press Q to line them up, and this looks nice. Okay, so we'll copy paste this, and we'll just change our animation to be enlarge. That's what we called it. Okay. Just like so, that's the fade in done. We can also duplicate this, and we'll call it the fade, or zoom out fade rather. And in here, what I want to do is I want to reverse this. So just make sure to reverse that. And with this done, we can compile and save. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and implement our inspect. So double click on this. And whenever we're inspecting this item, the first thing we want to do is create our widget. And let's also pass in our inspect value there. From this, we can also do a break, and we get access to all of our material, all of our items data. So from here, we can set our inspect mesh along with the materials. Let's do set static mesh, and the new mesh is the items mesh like so. Connect that there then. And let's also do materials. So it doesn't matter if it's just one material. For however many there are, it's going to change the material like so. Okay, so then we do inspect mesh, and let's do set material. There we go. So for every single one, we'll set a material. And if there's just one, we'll set the just one. Okay, with that done, we then want to, it would be a good idea to disable and enable the input for our player and this actor. So we'll grab our get player controller like so. We'll do disable input and make sure this goes into the player character like so. Oops, player controller rather. And after this, we want to enable input, but for this actor. So once again, grab this into player controller. So at the very beginning, we're disabling the input for the player. So if you remember, previously we made get my player, and this is just a reference to our third-person character. So like so, we are done with event inspect. Next, let's say you want to get out of this inspect view with the same key you entered. We can do IA_inspect. And in here, we then want to do the opposite. We want to disable this input for this actor and enable it once again for our player. So grab this, plug it in here, like so. Perfect. Next, we then want to check is the widget still valid. So we'll grab a reference to it, do a validated get. Now, if it is valid, we want to remove it from the remove from parent, like so. And then we want to destroy this actor. Now, if you're aware, before we go ahead and do all that, whenever we get close to an item, we get this message to pick up or open. So to demonstrate this, if we go close to our object, does it have a name? It should. There we go. We have pickup test cube. So we still will see this message if we are in our inspect view. So what we can do about it is whenever we inspect first, so let's go to our BPC underscore interaction component. Whenever we inspect, we want to remove this widget from the screen. So let's get a reference to it and do remove from parent, like so. And then when we're finished interacting with our item, so back in our inspect, we want to actually put it back to the screen. So how we get that reference is if we get my player character. That's why it's very handy to use components. We can do get component by class. And we can access our BPC underscore interaction component. Whoops. And from here, we can do get our WB interact message, reference to that widget, and we can do add to viewport. Boom. And just like so, we've added it again to our viewport. And then we're destroying this actor when we exit. Okay. So that's pretty much done. Next, all we have to do is set up the controls in order to rotate our item and stuff. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start by adding all the inputs we want to work. So if we go here and right click, we'll do left mouse button. We want that. We want a right mouse button as well. We want a middle mouse button too. So let's do those first, and we'll start with the left mouse. Whenever left mouse is clicked, we want to create a variable should rotate. So if it's pressed, we'll set this to be true, and on released, we'll set this to be false, just like so. Cool. Let's also comment this allows rotation, so we know what's happening. Then on the right mouse, what we'll do is we'll reset this to the original position as it was. So we'll get our scene capture component and we'll do set relative location. And if you remember, we did a default of -250 here. So that's what we'll do. Bring that a little bit closer. And then we want to get our inspect mesh and do set world rotation to 000. Like so. And this is our resets inspect. Okay. And for our middle mouse, we'll use this as the zoom in and zoom out from the full view to the detailed view. So for this guy, what I'll do is I'll do another one, another Boolean called zoomed in. We'll get it and we'll do a not Boolean. So if it's not zoomed in, we'll do a branch. So if it's not zoomed in, we'll zoom in, set to true, and then false, set to false. Okay. And in here, all we'll do is we'll get our zoom in fade function we made, and we'll get our zoom out fade function we made. Okay. Let's comment this switches between full and detailed view. Cool. Okay. Next, let's also implement our mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. So we'll do mouse wheel up and we'll do mouse wheel down. Let's start with our mouse wheel up. So we'll grab this. And in here, we want to get our scene capture component 2D. And we want to do get relative location, like so. From here, we then also want to get this and do a set relative location. We want to split this value and we want to split this value. And unpressed can go into here. So what we'll do is the Y goes to Y and the Z goes to Z. And we're interested in changing the X. So we drag out and let's do a plus because we're zooming in. And we'll zoom in by 20 points, like so. And we'll do a clamp. Now this is up to you how close you get it. Let's do clamp float. I found for the values I'm playing around with, a minimum of -400 to work quite well. And then for the maximum, I found -160, I believe, to work quite well. So with that, we'll plug this into the new X location, and this is our wheel up, zoom in. For the mouse wheel down, what we can do is we can copy this code, Control C and Control V, and on press this goes there. And all we want to change is, instead of adding, we want to do a subtraction of -20, like so, and this should work. Cool. Let's also comment this called zoom out. All right. Next, let's go ahead and implement the horizontal and the vertical movement for our mouse and the keys. So over here, I'll right click and do mouse X. This will be for our horizontal movement. And we'll do mouse Y, which will be for our vertical movement. First, we want to check should we rotate. So get that, which will go into a branch. And then we want to get our inspect mesh and do get world rotation. And we want to combine the rotators. Let's split the value B. And our axis value here is how fast we want to move. So we'll multiply this. And I found a value of -4 works quite well, but of course play around with this value to suit your needs. I will plug this into the yaw. Then at the very end, we want to grab this inspect mesh once again. And instead of getting, we want to do set world rotation this time. And of course, our return value goes in there. Cool. So this is our horizontal movement. So let's comment it. Horizontal movement. Okay. With that then done, we want to copy this and paste it. And in here, we want to plug this in there as well. And this will go into our pitch instead of the yaw. Cool. Let's comment it our vertical movement. Okay. What we could also do is get our keyboard. So let's do ia_move. And this function, or this input action comes by default with Unreal Engine. So in here, we want to split this action value. And we can actually do a lot of what we did here. So let's grab this like so, even the multiply node, Control C, Control V. On started, we're getting the world rotation and changing it like we did with the mouse. So axis value X goes in here and changes the yaw. Then if we Control C, Control V on this guy, we can get our yaw value, change it to the pitch, and this will go from dy. And if we rotate this or reroute, we should be done. So let's comment this code, our WSAD movement. Let's compile and save. And if we go to test this, we get this trace. So let's hide this trace before we test. And in here, in the capsule trace, in the BPC_interaction component, let's change this to none, compile and save that. So if we hit play and go to our cube there, we see pick up test cube. Now, if I press E, it says interacting on the top left corner, but if I press Q, it says inspecting, and we get this widget. While holding left mouse, I should be able to rotate horizontally and vertically, middle mouse to zoom in and middle mouse to zoom out, and middle mouse wheel up and down to zoom in and out. Okay. And just like that, we have a nice inspect system. And before I forget, let's also add a second item. So let's go to our content drawer, and from the parent class, which is our BP_item base, let's right click, go to create child blueprint class. And let's rename this to our mushroom. So item_mushroom. And if we go in, let this open. In here, we can change the mesh, but before we do, let's select our BPC_item data component. And in here, we can select which item we want it to be. So if you wanted to create more items, you can simply create more children. And if you go to your data table, so let's do that real quick, item data. In here, you can add as many items as you want, and then you can link them after creating one and doing the data component. So in here, let's change this to be our mushroom base, like so. And we can see yet again that this is not in the center. So we might have to do this for every single mesh type. I'm not sure. But let's compile this and make it smaller as well. So we'll paste that in like so and put it in the world. Items, mushroom. Right, so to make it center again, we'll go to our selection mode, modeling, Xform, edit pivot, and change it to center. And let's hit accept. Save that, back into selection mode. Now we might have to delete this item and bring it in again. There we go, yeah. So it does change after you bring it in again. Let's hit play and see how this one looks. So we'll go to Q. We can rotate it, zoom in, zoom out. Perfect. And just like that, we have created our inspect system. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. And as always, happy developing.